Unit's formula. So it's still a formula. Some of us are like, okay, there's the formula. I'm just going to plug it in. I'm going to chug and it's going to be fine. But I'm going to show you two ways. So the distance between 2 points is easy enough to understand. I put a point here. I put a point here. What is the distance, okay? Of course, there's measuring by ruler if I'm wanting to actually know it in certain inches, centimeters, etc. But for what we're talking about on a coordinate graph. Where would these points be? How far away from each other in units would these be? Okay, so there's two ways to do it. I'm going to show you two ways. You're going to pick a method. You're going to stick to it and use it. Okay. Okay. Most of us are familiar with the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So remember, it was a right triangle. You had two sides. When you squared them and then added them together, it would give you the length of the longest side squared. Okay, so what does that look like when I have 2 points? So let's look. -3, -4 is down here in the third quadrant. So there's point U. 2, 1 is going to be up here. That's point L. If I connect those, we're going to think about that being my hypotenuse. So that's what I want to find. But notice I can make a right triangle. Okay, so that right triangle, now I can count the distance. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high. So notice I have to count in jumps to figure out how tall it is. All right, so now I have A, now I have B. So using the a squared plus b squared equals c squared, I get 5 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. You type that in your calculator. You can do it in a couple steps, whatever you want. 5 squared is 25. 5 squared is 25. 25 plus 25 is 50. So if 50 equals c squared, to do the inverse of squared, we do square root. So why do I do the inverse? Is because I want c by itself. Okay? So that is square root of 50. All right? So then square root of 50, I can use a calculator. Desmos is always recommended, your yellow calculator. If you use your phone, you do have to turn it sideways to be able to get to square root of 50. It will give you an irrational number, meaning it's going to go on forever and ever. And you're like, do I have to write that whole thing down? No. Look at your answer and see what or look at your question and see what it tells you to round to. Now, in this one, it doesn't tell us. Yay, I know. But most of your questions will tell you how to round. So if I wanted to round to the 10th place, that's 1 decimal place, and it rounds up to 7.1. I can even get fancy, because mathematicians are lazy. They're not going to write the word approximately. 1, they're usually not the best spellers, and 2, that's way too much to write because, again, we're lazy. So we write this wavy equal sign to say that it is approximately 7.1. Okay? All right, so that is method number 1. Method number 2 is use the formula. Okay? What is the formula, you may ask? Well, we are going to use the square root, and it is derived from the Pythagorean theorem. So think about it. We use square root for Pythagorean theorem. Right? Shortcut to remember it. You're going to draw a girl with hair. Their hair is the square root symbol. You got to use your imagination a little bit here. Okay? She has eyeballs. That's going to be our 2 sets of parentheses, because we have 2 eyes, right? She has eyelashes. Our eyelashes are actually going to be the exponent 2, so squared. She has a nose, so we're going to use a plus sign for her nose. And we're going to use minus signs as her pupils. That's going to help us with, sounds crazy, I know. It's going to help us with the formula because the formula is going to be put your x values in there in the first one, and then put your y values in the second one, and solve. Okay? So again, x, y for our example. And then I just label them 1 and 2. Let's zoom in a little bit for that. 1 and 2. So then, using that formula, -5 minus 4 squared, I use the eyelashes there, plus 3 minus -1, close off the eyeball, squared. Now, feeling super lazy and you have a smart calculator, you just type this in from start to finish, okay? So what does that look like? Let's find Desmos here. Hit square root button, and then start typing away. So 5, -5. If you're using this method, be super careful that you type it in correctly. As you saw, it was real easy for me to almost not type it in correctly. Okay. I went ahead and made that minus a negative a plus. So 3 plus 1. So it looks like my distance is approximately 9.8. So approximately 9.8. Again, that's 2 ways to get the same answer. This way, mathematically, there's a little less to keep up with the pluses and the minuses and all the things. However, you got to have a graph to actually see and count the distance. So pro and con there. Here, the con is that you have to know the formula. The pro is that once you plug everything in, you use a calculator and you're done, which is amazing. But yeah, that's all there is to the distance formula. Now try it on your own.